welcome to my YouTube. I'm Natalie Saunderson. So this video comes to you from both what I'm seeing outside of myself and from a personal place, and it's the idea of change and the reality of change. And so the idea of change is very cute in yoga, where we want to get healthier, more flexible. You know, we're working towards a change that we choose. It's transformational. Our lives are going to get better. However, as a practitioner, you're also probably going to come across points in your life where change just happens. And this kind of spontaneous shift or transition will bring up a lot of things for you as a person, as a practitioner. And I believe for myself, when I reflect backwards and what I see in those around me that share what's happening for them, one of the biggest obstacles to change is the resistance of change itself, right? So thinking that you can somehow direct exactly how the change plays out. And it doesn't really matter what part of your life you're looking at. I think that this is a very common initial way to respond, because one thing, when you choose to change, you know, you have a long time to move houses and you prepare and you pack properly. And it's another thing to have change kind of disrupt your flow. And now when I say disrupt, I mean that it's probably often a change that you might not have chosen, planned for, anticipated, or expected. And so initially what your body might feel is a bit caught off guard. And when you're caught off guard and you feel like you're not in control and things have been kind of put up into the air, it's not how we've been taught to work through life or to proceed living from a place of being caught off guard, to be present, right? To not know what's happening next. We feel much more, we feel safer on a base level when we've got a bit of a plan and we know and can anticipate what the agenda looks like for us in the foreseeable future. And I'm going to suggest something very radically different, because I've seen over the past few years how consistently some of these changes have played out in the world and how people have been left feeling. And for things that I've just decided to change in my own life, it can feel very abrupt, even though it's by choice. Some parts of my thinking, the way that I wake up, the habits, the day that I'm planned, my priorities have taken a shift. It still feels like kind of navigating new terrain. There's a bit of an unknown. There's a bit of a discomfort in not necessarily knowing if it's how it's going to look, what's it going to feel like, how the details going to play out. And one of the biggest game changers in this process of really getting to understand who you are and living in a way that's in alignment is that you have some secret ingredients that take practice to assist you in this process. And one of them is trust. And trust is, I say practice because for many people it doesn't come naturally, right? Trust is something that for many people we could say immediately, oh, but I've done that before and it didn't work out. Or, you know, I surrendered and I let things happen and then it wasn't what I wanted. But when you peel back that storyline, for most people who think trust is a little bit maybe naive, perhaps, trust is actually one of the most courageous things that you could do for yourself in a situation where you're not in control, which is actually the majority of situations we're in. You might have a part in the situation, but you're actually not controlling all the elements and dynamics involved the majority of the time. And so when you move into trust, you're doing two things. One, you're changing your energetics, right? You're putting your body into a state of knowing that it's going to work out, or that you're okay, that you're safe, that you feel supported, that you believe in your ability to, whatever comes, to handle it, to manage to process whatever aftermath of this change arrives. And the second thing is what you're doing is you're also saying to the universe that I am with you in this. Because the opposite of that, when you don't go into trust and when you try and work harder, or you try and find out more and you keep pushing things, or you don't, have that patience and that grace to know that you're in a process, one. And so even if you're uncomfortable with this process, you still have to give it some time to play out, right? And what most of us do, and I can say this because there are certain things that I do feel like trying to kind of get more involved in. And then there are other changes that, I'm okay to sit back and let play out. And for each of us, it's going to look very different. But when you step in to try and speed up the situation, make the change happen faster, become, the dictator of what needs to happen next. You're actually forcing things, which is going to be going against likely getting yourself into a place where you're aligned and you're able to receive the outcome. Now let's look at this for a second. If you're in trust and say you have a big exam coming or a big shift that you need to kind of present yourself for, a presentation, and you're going to trust that it's going to go well instead of drive yourself crazy running through all the scenarios that may happen. Okay, so building up to this event, your body's going to continue to feel and say, because you're also practicing trust, I think it's going to be okay. I've done a few of these before. I usually get a bit nervous, but it's actually been really amazing when I'm through it. Or if it's an exam, I've been practicing enough that it does, it's nerve-wracking. I can get a little wound up. I don't sleep well the day before, but during, I actually am very focused because I've been mentally preparing. So I think I'm going to be okay in this. Okay, so walking into that situation with a sense of trust, you've been fortifying, you've been giving yourself that consistent mental feedback and the beliefs that you're going to be okay. And let's say something goes horribly wrong and you fail the test. Okay, that's the worst case scenario. Or the presentation flops and you don't get the job, or whatever happens, the worst case scenario happens. The difference is you've been walking towards that event with a sense of trust, which means your body is not preparing for the worst, which means you're not in fight or flight. So say that happens, and you're going to be more present and more capable of dealing with it at that time than you would be if you've been anticipating disaster, looking at the car wreck, knowing you're going in that one direction of complete disaster. You've been in a place of, I've got this, and even if you don't have it, which is sometimes inevitably going to happen in life where things don't work out the way we want, you're able to kind of see it differently. You're able to physically handle it differently. The emotions don't override you the same. Now again, if you've been in this place within yourself where you're really doubting your ability, you're really questioning if it's the right time, you don't know if you're going to be able to stomach all the nerves and get up there and do the thing, speak properly, relax into it. You've got all this constant buildup of something that hasn't even happened yet. So this is, in some ways, what we are propelled to be like in society. The idea that you can or should be able to catch yourself just in case, right? Insurance that you're going to be okay. The knowing that you've got a backup plan. Okay, but that's also contributing to a belief system that you actually aren't okay. And when you're in that place, you're still mentally trying to, okay, I'm going to get the perfect night's sleep. I'm going to meal before. I'm going to do all the things that are going to make me have the most amazing experience. And I'm going to expect and hope that nothing goes terribly fucking wrong. That's still in a place of complete distrust. And your body is going to reflect that. So you're not, one, going to enjoy this process. And if we're thinking about a change, you're not enjoying this kind of growth spurt you're going through, where you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. You're not enjoying yourself as huge to me. And two, you've decided that the future is not a future that you actually want. You've been focusing on a future that you don't want. So you've been spending a lot of energy really winding yourself up, taking your energy into a place where your body will feel the response of that without it even happening yet. And this can be applied to anything. It can be applied to you not necessarily knowing where you're going to live next year. It can be applied to you being in the middle of job transitions. It can be applied to you moving away from a relationship that meant a lot to you, and feeling like you're in the midst of that change. If you continue to kind of feed the loop of thinking and belief of this is the worst thing, how am I going to handle it, then one, you're really not believing in your own ability to handle it. And chances are you've gotten this far in life probably doing some really amazing things. You've also probably gotten this far in life having had things happen to you that really were challenging. And as challenging as they got, you wouldn't still be here if you hadn't figured out that challenge. And I can say this because I'm also someone who's had a very kind of interesting navigational biography to this point. There's been lots of highs, lots of lows, lots of I don't knows. But what I'm suggesting is that when you feel things shifting, when you have things shift on you before you feel fully ready for them, know that you have a choice. And it might not be very easy initially to practice this idea of trust, but it's actually setting you up to handle whatever comes your way, not only so you feel more supported from your own kind of belief system, but you're actually supporting your body, and energetically you're allowing the situation to play out without contracting in it. Okay, it's going to possibly have a very big impact on the outcome of whatever is changing in your life. I hope that's helpful, and I'm sharing this because, as I said, we're going through a big shift of seasons, and there's been so many people that I'm watching either express big internal shifts or have big events happen in their lives on the outside. And instead of trying to control, I invite you to remember that you are much more strong, capable, and powerful than you think. Hope this was helpful. If you feel like subscribing and you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below, and I will see you in my next video.